Good morning, Greg Champion.
Hello, yes, a friend called and said you were playing the song, so I called the station. Thanks for putting me on.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. It's very appreciative. And, of course, I wouldn't have thought anyone would need to ring you because you would have already been listening to us.
That's right, indeed, and nice to talk.
Greg, Renmark, the end of your destination for this album, is that a place you go often, or is it just like a lot of your stuff, you just plucked it out of the air one day?
There are two ways to go with this answer. Yeah, I plucked it out of the air, but no, the truth is, I have an Adelaide mate, and he gave his son-in-law my CD and said, have a listen to this, and his son-in-law said, music for playing on the way to Rimmer.
That's superb.
Found it amusing. He told me, and I said to him, that sounds like an album title to me.
Yeah.
Now, for those who are playing along at home, Renmark, whereabouts is it? I know where it is, but I thought I'd give you the chance to tell people.
I think it's between Paris and Provence. But it's in the Riverland, old boy. It's up there, like on the South Australian side of Mildura, mate.
Yeah, that's how I would describe it. And is it a bit of a holiday destination, or do people go to Renmark because there's nowhere else to go? Is it like going to Leongatha?
No, that's a fair question. Renmark isn't exactly a big tourist town, although they might disagree with me. And it is on the river, after all, and it'll have great caravan parks. But it was happened to be where the son-in-law was going that day.
Yeah, enough. And good morning to the folks of Leongatha who think I've just slagged off at their tourism.
Leongatha, I think, is a tourist town. I think it's a lovely town. I love it.
I'd dodge the beef Wellingtons if I were you, but that's another story for another time.
Not going there,
The Renmark thing's very much about your music. It's whatever takes your fancy at the time, and I think we love that about it. But the motivation for you to still be writing, Greg, where does it come from, and where do your ideas come from these days?
You're going to ask the big curly ones?
Well, that's what we're here for. We always try and ask our guests a question they've never been asked before.
Oh, no, I've heard it a few times, but it wants a long answer. First part of the question, why are you still writing? And two, where do the ideas come from? Well, one, since the Could Have Been stopped broadcasting just 2 years ago, I've always done straight music parallel to the Could Have Beens all my life. That is, since '83 when I joined the Could Have Been. So I've been putting out straight music, so-called straight music albums, parallel to all the footy and cricket albums since then. So that's and somehow mysteriously I haven't slowed up in a rate of writing songs. So I'm finding that I'm writing songs just as many as I was 10, 20 or 30 years ago. So I'm in a flow, and it hasn't dried up just at this stage. Second part of the question was, where do you get your ideas from? Well, that's a bit like asking, does Jack Newton swim in circles? But where do you get your ideas from? Well, the truth is, I give a few songwriting workshops at folk festivals. In fact, I think you've got to do it in 2 weeks at Malden Folk Festival again. And the answer is, where do you get your ideas from? Well, someone famously said, I make them up.
Right. Well, that's good.
Yeah, no, that's good. Because I think a lot of people, the less musically oriented, Greg, would obviously know of your work on the Could Have Beens. And good morning to one of our listeners who's no doubt listening, a chap called Ian who lives down Barwon Heads Way. Good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Cope.
But I think the fact that you have done so much in the world of music, I've just brought this up on my phone here. Apart from being, I beg your pardon, Greg Champion OAM, if you don't mind.
Well played.
He's won ARIA Awards for the Best Comedy Release, along with Bucko, the Aussie Christmas Song, and Stand Back Australia for the Best Comedy Release. Country Music Awards, May Your Fridge Be Full of Coldies, was the video track of the year at the Golden Guitars. He's won songs at the awards at the Songwriters Association in Tamworth, including for the same song. And one of my favourite songs of yours of all, to be perfectly honest with you, along with Jim Haynes, Don't Call Wagga Wagga Wagga, because calling Wagga 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 is wrong.
Well, you're quite nicely boned up on your country music information there, and you must half like country music to have that information at your fingertips. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. There's nothing wrong with a bit of country, is there?
The thing I like most about your country music, Greg, is you don't sing it with an American accent, which I think is pretty important for those of us living here, down under.
When I started going to Tamworth in 1991, pardon me, there was, in the 90s, something of a debate in Tamworth about, whether there was any obligation to not sing in an American accent or whether there wasn't. I just came to the conclusion pretty quickly that country music is both things. Country music can be heavily USA influenced, and if people, to certain country artists, emerging ones, young ones coming through, if they want to sing like their American country heroes, that's their prerogative. And then there's this other school with your Ted Eggins and your John Williamsons and your Slims and your et ceteras, the Buccos, that want to follow the Australiana path. So I think both are legit under the country umbrella.
Because I think the other thing I find, Greg, is that, if you said to someone, list 100 country songs, most of them are going to come out of the US and they're going to have US influences. I had the good fortune to talk to Lucky Star, and there was an element of, I think, a little bit of annoyance about the fact that Johnny Cash and others had done a version of I've Been Everywhere with American towns in it. We don't seem to do a lot of obviously Australian country songs, do we? We don't have a list of every town in Australia having a song about it like they do in the US.
I think that's been changing significantly since I got involved with it. And I would hope that Lucky Star isn't annoyed about Johnny Cash doing it with American place names, because that's why not? The composer is Jeff
Mack.
Thank you.
Yep.
I had a brain fade and you saved me. And I knew Jeff, and it's one of the loveliest people you ever met, and a Melbourne boy. Did you know that?
Born in Surrey Hills, with an E in it, not the one in Sydney.
Yeah. And how about this? He went to Camberwell Grammar. So
and survived to tell the story, which is even more impressive.
So Jeff Mack, he was obviously chuffed. He told me, I think, he stayed at my place one night, that it was translated into 16 languages. Well, that's a feather in your cap. So I hope Lucky would be comfortable with that.
I think I may have misinterpreted his feelings. Maybe a little bit puzzled. Maybe that's a better word. I think, in fact, there's now 120 versions of it, including the famous Auntie Jack version, which only uses Wollongong, 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 Dapto, Wollongong, Wollongong.
And I've parodied it about 6 times, including Came From Out of Lee, man. We got Motley, Kernahan, Rigney, Wiggy, etc.
I'm wondering whether that's in the 120 or not. Don't know.
Yeah, I know, but the version that stuck for me was got to do the gardening. I got Buddleia, Banksia, Kufia, Kunzia, Begonia, good old hydrangea, camellia, lobelia, even bougainvillea, hakea, magnolia, pink and red azalea, golden ash, mountain ash, paradise, ivy.
Yeah, well played, sir. And I'm assuming you're doing that off the top of your head. Lucky told me that when he recorded the original version, he could only do one line at a time because that was all he could remember. And then he'd have to, obviously now he can do it.
Well, that would have taken some skillful recording, because back then, one line at a time, you need to have a good engineer.
Absolutely.
Whereas here, now you do it digitally, that's easy.
Now, Champs, I want to go back to the original, and I love the fact we've been off on a tangent, because that's very, very good. But you yourself said that we make it up as we go. But how much of the songwriting is that compared to lived experience? That
was a flippant answer to a somewhat probing question.
Yes.
If you ask me again where the ideas come from, well, it's something we discuss in these songwriting workshops that we do at folk festivals, and the ideas come from everywhere, and that's what songwriting's about. One of the chief phrases at these so-called tutorials is keeping your radar up. So you've got to have your radar up. You've got to get into the mindset of a songwriter. If you've got a natural inclination for it and you nurture it, just like trying to get to league football if you're a naturally reasonable player, then you keep your radar up and you nurture your songwriting sort of tendencies and skills, and these ideas, they pop up 5, 6 times a day, sometimes 10, sometimes 2, but you test ideas in your head, up to half a dozen times a day, and if you like the feel of one, you write it on your master list, and that's how a crude way of saying how I go about it. Other writers have different ways, and one thing we learn is that all writers have different methods.
And sometimes I suppose your travelling will have you sitting on the bank of a river in a peaceful, tranquil time that maybe an idea just pops into your head. And I was just thinking, after seeing you perform live and seeing you engage with audience members after and sometimes during the event, that you would meet some amazing Australian characters that perhaps some ideas pop into your head out of those sorts of conversations.
Well, it would be fun to say that when I'm meditating in the West Macdonald Ranges outside of Alice Springs, I get some good ideas. And in fact, there's some truth in that. But even though I started that flippantly, but then on the other hand, the ideas can come up sitting in city traffic too. A lot of them.
That lived experience stuff.
Well, that song, Boomeroo Flyer, which my one song that Slim just Dusty covered, I was sitting in city traffic there at the lights, and there was a big truck next to me, and all I could see was on the door, and on the door was painted Boomeroo Flyer. Boomeroo Flyer. So I wrote the song, and Slim ended up covering it. And further investigation revealed that it was a nursery at Lara.
All right. Good stuff. Yeah. Oh, it is a small world in which we live.
But we've got there's a band that's come out of South Gippsland, ironically from Leongatha or thereabouts, called No Promises, and we've had a lot to do with Janine and Eric. And Janine is their songwriter, and she finds herself waking up in the middle of the night, and a song just pours out, and she has to write it there and then before the idea goes. I guess once an idea is in your mind, it's good to get it down on paper, metaphorically.
The middle of the night song idea is a common theme amongst writers, and I've had plenty of experiences of that, and we talk about that in the songwriting groups as well. And you can get it. What I often find is I wake up with a tune in my head, that they do feel like they're given to you from beyond. And you can have them in the middle of the night, or you can have them going to sleep. I like to work on them. I like to sing the song I'm working on going to sleep. It either puts me to sleep, or I get an idea and have to turn the light on.
And in fact,
matter of fact, I got it now.
Champs, everyone needs an income stream. You've got a pretty good one, I suppose. It goes 12 months of the year comfortably, but part of it will be people like me who love your footy songs, grew up on them and just love hearing them again. And there's the other part that with this album, songs you'd like to hear on the way to Renmark. Clearly, there's another side to your music. How do you go sharing the audiences around between the two styles?
Demand for my straight music. I've made 20 more straight albums. They've pretty well all sunk without a trace. I'm happy to share with you that this new album, which is was made about 10, 12 weeks ago, I would have sold about a dozen, about 12, somewhere between 10 and 15. That's how low demand is for this sort of thing. But to use a metaphor, you have to give birth to your babies. That's the sort of compulsion of it. And you have to want to believe that these are worth putting out in public and making an enormous loss on.
Yeah, okay. There is a creativeness about you that needs to be dealt with.
Well, you write these songs and you feel and believe that they're good enough to for you to want them to be heard by a wider audience. And the only way to do that is to take an enormous loss and record them properly.
Yeah. And in a sort of weird parallel, I'm at the moment trying to write a book, and I've got this thing in my head that if I don't get it out of my head, it's going to go away. So I've got to get it down on paper. I guess there's an element of that as well with the songs, that if you don't record them and record them properly, they might just disappear.
Yeah, it's probably no any sort of fear of them going away. It's more of a drive to want to finish that song.
Yeah.
And we do owe you, I think one of the funniest things that's ever happened while Neil and I have been doing these 260 shows was when Ian Cover came into the studio and presented us with an invoice for the Could Have Been Champions for providing the backing music to one of our sponsorship announcements for the local line marker. And I reckon you would know which song we may have borrowed some of your lyrics from. So those songs will forever live in our memory, and when we hope we get to see you playing them a lot. But the other stuff you do, I really quite enjoy as well. And I hope that you've got audiences that are appreciating both and give you a chance to be creatively fluent on both sides of your musical life.
I had a good run at Port Fairy. It might have gone to 15, but I've only been booked once in the last 15 years, roughly. But in the 80s, I got it annually, maybe in the 90s. Anyway, the ideas on... anyway, Malden Festival's coming up in 2 weeks. Yeah. I still get the privilege of singing these songs at folk festivals semi-regularly, or now and again, or 3 or 4 a year, and that's still a good buzz. Long may it last.
Absolutely. Well, we need to get moving, Greg, but let's just do a couple of last bits. First of all, the album is called Music for Playing on the Way to Renmark. However, were you to be going to Leongatha, the music would still be suitable?
No, then you'd play my album Music for Playing on the Way to Borough.
But it'd be a very quiet 15 kilometres the rest of the trip. People, if they would like to buy a copy of your album, best to go to your website?
Yeah. Yep, just go to the website, and my email's there, champs@gregchampion.com.au. It's been the same email since email was invented. So, yeah, no, that's the way.
Greg, just quickly, the other side of you, we're talking this morning about health and well-being, and you are one who's been a very active runner that not many people would know about, still doing it, and it's important to keep the mind sharp, to have the body in good nick, and it's something you still do, and I imagine you would encourage others of our vintage to do as well.
Well, I enjoyed sport at school, and I was okay at football and tennis. I was terrible at cricket. But
didn't you make 100 in the backyard at Mum's?
Yeah, but I was bluffing a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no umpire at the time. Well, no, I didn't actually get to 100, but don't spoil the story.
Yeah.
But with the other stuff, keeping. I'm back playing club tennis, and yes, I took up athletics again 20 years ago, and it's still going.
Yeah, it's very important, and it's good that you do that. It also gets you down with the common man, and of course, I imagine on the tennis court or maybe while you're running around a track, a song or two might just pop into your head.
No, I don't think any time I'm playing tennis I've thought of a song.
Okay.
But if he does, he gets his guitar out, he gets his tennis racket out and plays air guitar. Greg, it's always good fun to have a chat to you. Today, because you've come back on the show a second time, it makes you an official friend of the Blokes, which is an honour we don't just bestow on anyone, you understand.
I'm deeply honoured, and I can't wait for a third shot.
Excellent.
Good on you,
Thanks, mate. We'll chat soon.